Welcome to this meeting of Council. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting may be captured as part of this recording. Indigo Shire Council acknowledges the original custodians of these lands. The people of the rivers and the hills have walked these lands for thousands of years as well as today, and we pay respect to the elders of the past and present. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Do we have any apologies or leaves of absence? None? Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest with the agenda tonight? None. We'll now move to open forum. The first question is from Christine Hay. Christine Hay is not present in the gallery tonight, but Liz McInerney is here as her representative, and we will ask her question. RE, the Chiltern Athenaeum Building Restoration Project. The Heritage Architect of the Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee offered to discuss the temperature control of the building with the project manager. Has the project manager had this discussion? And what are the outcomes? I'll ask that question to the Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Hi, Liz. Thank you. Look, just to follow up, my response last time was that there had been contact made with the Heritage Advisor, but they'd not yet had a discussion. So since then, there's been some further email communication. There haven't been a conversation yet. We're hoping that will take place before Christmas. So there's sort of some communication without them sitting down to resolve what the best way forward is.
Thank you. We'll now go to the second lot of questions, which are from Liz McInerney, who is in the gallery tonight. I'll ask the first question, again, all three to the Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett. Reiterating question 1 from November 28th meeting, which remains unanswered, the Chiltern Athenaeum Committee requests a breakdown of money spent on restoration works undertaken to date. Would you like me to ask all three and you respond to all three, or individually, Director?
Oh, look, I don't mind. I've got individual answers, so I'm happy to go one at a time. It's probably easier to follow. Thanks again, Liz. So I indicated last time that the breakdown of costs would be provided to the committee. I understand that hasn't happened yet, but I know there was a breakdown presented to me today. So look, I think that'll be submitted through to the committee in the next couple of days. Yep. Yeah, I think we should be able to pull that off. Yeah, sure.
Question 2. The report commissioned by Indigo Shire Council from Period Building Conservation states that damage consistent with rising damp and condensation from high humidity are undesirable for restoration. Due to the extended ongoing period of works at the Athenaeum, what is to prevent further damage to already restored areas? Water condensation has been noted on interior walls.
Can I change my response to the last question? My response here will probably cover this one and the next question. So I've had the project manager give me some details to cover off on both these two. So I might get you to read the third one too, if that's okay.
The third question, the committee have concerns over continuing water ingress at the Athenaeum. The stated recently installed hood over door with crude quadrant profile eave gutter was removed from the eastern door. This has now allowed water to enter the building from this point. What plans have been put in place to rectify this problem, and have drainage works been completed on the northwestern side of the building? Director of Infrastructure Services.
All right, thank you again, Liz. So look, I've got a lot of notes here. I won't read them all, but I guess the short answer is there's been a range of works completed, including a damp course to the base of the building, a surface drain, and I think your question sort of says, is that to the north and west of the side? And I think I'm reading here that a surface drain has been installed to the north and west sides of the building. A subfloor ventilation system, among other things. So there's some other minor works still to take place. So I think in response to those two questions, there's a range of works. That's a short summary, and the project manager is probably best placed to provide some more details if there's a little bit more required.
Our third set of questions tonight are from Rosalie Kerwin, and Rosalie is in the gallery. The first question, when it was discovered the initial quote for climate control at the Chiltern Athenaeum was grossly underestimated, the Athenaeum Committee, assisted by the generous Chiltern community, began fundraising, as you are no doubt aware. I am reiterating a question I asked the Mayor, anticipating Council may be able to clarify the situation. How much are Council prepared to add to the amount which they originally budgeted for the climate control system? I would expect those budgeted funds have been sitting in an account all this time, growing interest awaiting the installation. Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Thanks, Rosalie. So look, it's really hard for me to give an answer on how much funding council is prepared to commit. Ultimately, it's a decision for council as part of a future budget process. So there's been no decisions made to this point in time about any future funding allocations. To be clear, though, in your question, you have suggested that there would be funding sitting around. There's no surplus funds sitting in an account gaining interest. So all the funds committed to this project are required to complete the current scope of work. So yeah, the costs have certainly changed from the original budget allocation. There's extra work to been required. So yeah, there's not an amount of money that's sort of sitting there gathering interest.
Second question, last meeting we were given a date of early 2024 for completion of the works at the Chiltern Athenaeum. How can council make a statement with such authority when the climate control system, which is vital for the health and endurance of our collection, will not be installed, as it may not yet even be fully funded?
Thank you again. So look, I think best I can do is clarify the response I gave at the November meeting, and that is that the early 2024 completion relates to the currently funded scope of work. So I wasn't trying to project a completion date for works that we don't yet have funding for. So yeah, clearly, you know, we don't yet have funding for the climate control system, but all of the other works that will be completed within the current budget is where I've put that estimate of early 2024, and I don't have a precise date at the moment for you.
The next question is from Paul Blake. Can I just confirm that Paul is in the audience? Thank you, Paul. Public Safety 144 Reedy Street, Rutherglen approval development. A plan is on public display in Rutherglen showing very clearly the locations of the golden laden reefs that were mined throughout Rutherglen. This plan was also produced by the Indigo Shire. The property at 144 Reedy Street is located within the Lanarkshire Reef. The previous owners of the property at 144 Reedy Street have confirmed past cases of significant subsidence due to previous mining activity. There will be many families that will live in this previously mined site who will have young children. My question to council is, why was a subsidence report not a requirement as part of the planning permit submission following the area being previously confirmed by council as a mined site? Director of Planning and Corporate Services, Greg Pinkerton.
Right, thanks for the question. So council needs to follow a formal process when we're deciding on permits and the conditions that we're adding into them. And none of the planning controls applicable to that site show the land has undergone historic mining activity. Further due diligence was undertaken in the form of Resources Victoria's geotech mapping, and it confirmed that there was no record of mining activity on that parcel of land. As a triple check, council has had the process looked at by our planning lawyer, who has confirmed that the appropriate process has been done for the planning side of things.
And our last question is from John Harvey, who I can confirm is in the gallery. When is the inappropriate fountain next to the kiosk at the corner of Ford and Camp Streets, Beechworth, going to be removed, as has been promised by council for the past few years? Director of Infrastructure Services, Ian Ellett.
Thanks, John. Oh, look, I wish I had a really simple answer to this. Look, ideally, we don't want to remove the fountain until we can provide a suitable replacement in a central location, particularly as we're coming into the summer. So look, we've identified some suitable alternate sites that are supported by the Heritage Advisor. So that means, you know, when we look at a replacement, we can get out of that high profile area, which is obviously near the kiosk that you've described. And we're currently working to procure an alternative fountain that meets both accessibility needs as well as being an appropriate installation, you know, for the heritage environment that we're in. So there's a couple of loose ends we're still trying to tie up there, but we're really keen to move on that as soon as we reasonably can, but when we can get a suitable replacement. So look, it won't be, before Christmas. So again, I'm going to say early 2024, but I can't give you anything more precise than that at the moment.
That brings us to the end of open forum. We'll now move on to community and council achievements. Do any of the councillors wish to raise a community and council achievement? Councillor Tysell.
Yeah, I think it's fitting that we have members from the Athenaeum here. I'd just like to give a good shout out to the people at the Telegraph, the staff, the volunteers and the general Chiltern community for once again raising significant money towards the Chiltern Athenaeum. They raised over $10,000 for that particular cause 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, Councillor Tysell. Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, I just wanted to congratulate the Yakandanda Riding Club, who were awarded the top regional club 2023 by Horse Riding Clubs Association of Victoria. And I also noted that for the second year in a row, Bilson's has won gold in the tourism, wineries, distilleries and breweries category at the Victorian Tourism Awards.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. To those within the gallery, you're more than welcome to stay for the remainder of the meeting, but please feel free to leave it at any time if you wish. Item 7 is condolences. Do any councillors have any condolences to raise for the meeting? No? Item 8 is confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. The recommendation is that the following minutes be confirmed. 1, the minutes of the council meeting held on the 28th of November 2023 as published on council's website, and 2, confidential minutes of the council meeting held on the 28th of November 2023 as provided to councillors under separate cover. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Tysell. Councillor Gaffney, do you wish to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Tysell? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 9 is business arising from the previous minutes. Is there any business arising? Councillor Gaffney.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. At the November council meeting, there was a motion moved to purchase 2 CCTV cameras. And that was to be considered in the 2024-2025 budget. Since then, the weekend before last, there was vandalism down at Lake Zambell with you smashing bottles and doing burnouts and doing damage to Sandy Beach. Also, I think it was last weekend, there was some vandalism done in Connors Street, Chiltern, in regard to Christmas decorations. It was certainly put on what's on in Chiltern, and the comment was it's a pity that they didn't have surveillance regarding the Lake Zambell incidents. They wondered whether CCTV could be used. I told them that it couldn't be considered until the 2024-2025 budget. I was just wondering whether that matter could be reconsidered at the half-year budget review, CEO.
You're asking me a question in regards to a resolution that this council has passed, so I can't give you an answer to that. The resolution is specific about what and when. So the only instruction I have from council is to implement that resolution as it stood from the last council meeting.
So the half-year budget review will come up to the February meeting?
Yes.
So that would be an opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney. Item 10 is petitions, and there are none. Item 11 is planning and corporate services, and item 11.1 is the rate cap variation for 2024-2025. The item is for decision, and the recommendation is that council does not seek a rate cap variation for the 2024-25 financial year. Do I have somebody to move that? Move Councillor Tysell, seconded Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Tysell.
It's good news for most of our residents that we haven't asked for a variation. We also should take into consideration that when setting our rates, we don't do it. It's all run through the Victorian government, as well as doing land valuations. So I think that perhaps when we reflect on our rates and our evaluations, we should take that into consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd, would you like to speak as seconder?
We've completed a 10-year strategic resource plan that shows that we will not need a rate cap variation. We've got no strategic basis to ask for a rate cap variation, and we would have to have done performed a community engagement process to gauge the community's view before we decided on a rate cap variation anyway, but we don't have no strategic need for a variation.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.2 is completion of the Indigo Planning Scheme Review 2023. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 endorses the attached Indigo Planning Scheme Review 2023 pursuant to Section 12B (1) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987. 2, authorises the CEO to forward the Indigo Planning Scheme Review 2023 to the Minister for Planning in accordance with Section 12B (5) of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, and 3, notes that work will now commence on a Shire-wide strategy to guide future land use planning and development. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Shepherd, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Shepherd.
So as the planning authority, we are meant to review our planning every time a new council comes on, and our last one was 2014. So we've been long awaiting this review, but the review really is an audit of the scheme, and it provides recommendations about what actions need to be taken. I think basically it showed that we had a mature planning scheme, but there were some holes and some areas of work that we need to do. It outlines the background work necessary to clearly establish the needs of future projects by providing strategic justification for future work programs, budget allocations and planning scheme amendments. And we found that there is an inadequate policy direction and associated controls to recognise opportunities for influencing land use development outcomes. So a piece of work that needs to be undertaken is an overall growth strategy and framework plan that sets a vision and high-level guidance for land use and settlement development for the municipality. And that will, of course, involve a fair bit of community engagement. So the community will have an opportunity to give us input into this, which is one of our first key pieces of work.
Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. I think this is a really important piece of work for the community. As we've seen over the last few years with an increase in population, movement of people out of metropolitan areas into our region, I think it's really important that we look at the way we use and intend to use our land and give our community a longer term vision of how Indigo Shire will develop. I think having the community inform that process is critical, and I'm very excited that this process allows for that to happen. I think also having a plain English statements about land use and the opportunity for community developers and business to forward plan for themselves is a really important outcome. And I'm looking forward to what I'm sure will be a somewhat lengthy and detailed process, giving us a very, I hope, simple, plain English and very clear vision for the land in Indigo Shire.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
I note that there had been a 60% increase in permit applications due mainly to people choosing to do work on their homes during the COVID pandemic, and also the influx of new newcomers to the area. So yeah, it's a 60% increase is very significant.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those carried unanimously. Item 12 is community and economic development, and item 12.1 is recreation reserve master plans draft. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council endorse the draft master plans for Coulston Park Recreation Reserve, Yakandanda Sports Park, Barclay Park Recreation Reserve, and Allen's Flat Waterhole for public exhibition until the 31st of January 2024. Do I have somebody who would like to move that motion? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, recreation reserves are indeed very important community assets to, and must be always looking towards the future to maintain and extend for the need of the future generations. The 4 draft master plans have been through an extensive engagement progress and are now ready to be placed on public exhibition. Congratulations to those involved in the construction of these master plans.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, all of the plans give very specific guidelines and future opportunities for our reserves. They're also one of the important pieces of work that can be done for them because it does guide funding and whereabouts we can get funding opportunities for our communities and parks. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Horn.
I have a couple of quick questions, please. I'm wondering if solar power is included in these plans.
To the Director of Community and Economic Development, Sally Rice.
Sorry, Council, I'll have to take that question on notice, but the master plans being master plans can be improved upon in the delivery of how they're implemented, and solar panels, I know this council's a strong supporter of, and so I'm sure we'll be sure that they're included.
Thank you. You can possibly answer my other question. I wondered if there's provision for emergency use during natural disasters.
That will definitely be a factor for some of the buildings in some of the master plans, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd.
Could I also ask a question? I note there was a lot of input by the stakeholders in all of those different recreation areas. Just wondering whether this will go out directly to those stakeholder groups. The plan will be sent to them directly to have input to just check back in that that's what they've asked for. They look great too. I'm knowing both. I know 2 of those sites, and having a look at both the plans, I think they really do reflect obviously a lot of community input, but just wondering if it's going back to those stakeholders for comment.
Yeah, thank you. The direct users of the facilities and the user groups, committees of management will be sent them directly, as well as them being available on the website.
Would anybody else like to speak to this item? Councillor Croucher, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 12.2 is the Arturo Island Friendship Incorporated Memorandum of Understanding. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 authorises the CEO to sign the Memorandum of Understanding between Indigo Shire Council and the Indigo Shire Arturo Island Friendship Incorporated. 2, provides continuing councillor and officer representation for the committee and attendance at meetings. And 3, increase the annual financial contribution to $4,000. And 4, sends a letter to the committee confirming the ongoing council commitment to the committee and thanking them for their work. Do I have somebody to move that motion? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Croucher.
Yes, well, as the elected councillor rep on the committee, I can see firsthand the work commitment made in the efforts to provide economic and social opportunities to the people of Arturo Island. The Shire itself has had a long history with East Timor and in particular Atura Island, and it is indeed gratifying that Indigo continues its connection with the Memorandum of Understanding and the Atura Island Committee.
Thank you, councillor Croucher. Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Thank you. I think it's a really lovely example of how, on a very small scale, local government can partner with other communities that are less fortunate than ourselves. And as the island is one of our nearest neighbours, is one of our newest democracies, and is also one of the poorest regions, I think it's a really lovely example of our generosity and care for our neighbours. I also understand that at some point we may choose not to support Atura Island per se, and perhaps direct our efforts and some funding elsewhere. But for the moment, I'm very pleased to consider an MOU for certainty for both us and for the people of Atura Island, and I'm very pleased to support this recommendation.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Gaffney.
There's certainly a lot of people in Indigo Shire who are really doing it tough. To spend ratepayers' money overseas, there's a few people have got reservations about this. I'm certainly pleased that this committee has become an incorporated body and look forward to being told what this money has achieved.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 13 is infrastructure services, and item 13.1 is the November Capital Works report. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council notes the November Capital Works report and year-to-date progress in the delivery of the Capital Works program. Do I have somebody to move that? Moved Councillor Tyson, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Tyson?
Yeah, I'd just like to note that some of the work that's been done is the resealing and patching on our roads. It's taken up quite a long time for us to get there, but we've done a fair bit of driving around our communities today. And a lot of those holes have been repaired just in time for our tourism season to begin. So well done.
Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder?
Just to say, I commend the council officers on their ability to deliver such a large volume of capital works across the Shire, and to do so within the budget and resource constraints that they face. As per Councillor Tysell's remarks, I'm very pleased to see the road resealing, resurfacing works continuing. I'm very pleased that council was able to secure some additional funding to support that work. And otherwise, I'm very happy with the reports and the progress to date.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tyson, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14 is executive management, and item 14.1 is Audit and Risk Committee Biannual Report, September 2023. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 receives the biannual report of the Audit and Risk Committee, and 2 thanks the committee for its work. Do I have someone to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Gold. Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This biannual report from the Audit and Risk Committee is certainly worth a read. It's very detailed. It talks about sort of numerous issues over the period, including a commission of inquiry into the Moira Shire testing of the cyber incident response plan. And the committee has requested a report be provided on the testing of the cyber incident response plan, which is very important, particularly for all of the people of Indigo Shire. I think the Audit and Risk Committee are doing a really good job. We've got the support of council, and council certainly supports that committee. Both the internal and external auditors have given a resounding confidence in this committee.
Councillor Gold, would you like to speak as seconder? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Would you like to sum up, Councillor Gaffney? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.2 is report on the activities and performance of community asset committees. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that Council 1 receives and notes the report of the activities and performance of Council's community asset committees. 2, acknowledges the achievements of the community asset committees and the work being undertaken by council officers to increase the sustainability of committees into the future. And 3, thanks Community Asset Committee volunteers in writing for their contribution to the management of council facilities. Can I have someone to move that motion? Moved Councillor Croucher, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Croucher?
I too would like to acknowledge the work done by our asset committees throughout the Shire. Voluntarily run by community members, these committees are a vital sounding board to us and ensure that community assets, including facilities, are well maintained. To all those volunteers on performing their duties on these committees, a huge thank you.
Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate Councillor Crouch's remarks and also comment that Indigo Shire has a very proud history of a very high participation rate for our volunteers. And it's great to see that they've been recognised again for the work they do. They are literally the hub of many of their communities, and without them, we really wouldn't be able to provide the services that we do.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher, would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.3 is advisory committee minutes. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council receives the attached unconfirmed meeting minutes for the following advisory committees and endorses the officer recommendations. A, the Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee, B, the Indigo Shire Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee, and C, Indigo Advisory Committee. Can I have someone to move that motion? Moved Councillor Gold, seconded Councillor Tyson. Councillor Gold.
I think similarly to the previous remarks, the advisory committees are an extraordinary contributors to council and our informed decision making, and I think a wonderful way for people in community with a real interest in some aspects of their life and activities to be able to contribute and ensure a really informed debate in this space, and that our activities and decisions reflect what's important to the community. So I similarly commend our advisory committees for their work, their diligence, the effort and time that they put into their role. And I, for one, am very grateful for the expertise that this council benefits from by having these committees operate so successfully.
Councillor Tyson, would you like to speak as seconder? No. Would any other councillor like to make a comment? Councillor Horn.
We were reminded of the value of our advisory committee members last week at the Environment Advisory Group when the issue of the cat curfew came up. That actually came from a committee member some time ago. So yeah, they play a very important role, and to give their time and expertise is greatly appreciated.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
Playing up, but I note that there were 2 items from the Cultural Heritage Committee, and one of them was an update on the Udomba site and what was happening there, and the other was an endorsement of the collections across our Shire and the need to have some strategic management decisions around how we were going to manage the whole collections across the Shire. So just wondering, are either of those being, I see that they're supported by management, just wondering what's happening with them.
CEO, is there any update on those, or is what's in the agenda the most up-to-date information? Director of Community and Economic Development, Sally Rice.
Yeah, thanks very much. This is a really strongly supported by staff, this initiative, and we've got a couple of key vacancies in the tourism and museum part of the org structure. As soon as they're finished, appointments are made, this will be able to progress. It's about working with the collections right across the Shire, Athenaeums, for example, and trying to sort of bed down some of those ownership, management, conservation and preservation issues that we're aware of. So we'll be really keen to get into that when those staff are appointed to those key roles.
Thank you.
Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Croucher.
Very, very quickly, just look, I chaired the Community Grants and Awards Advisory Committee, and might I say that was a great group of community volunteers from throughout the Shire, and they were the ones that discussed and made these awards, which is, I think, truly great for our Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Croucher. I'll go back to Councillor Gold. Would you like to sum up? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.4 is informal meetings of councillors' records. The item is for decision. The recommendation is that council accepts the attached informal meetings of councillors' records. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Gaffney, seconded. Councillor Croucher. Would you like to speak? No. Councillor Croucher? No. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 14.5 is contracts awarded under Chief Executive Officer delegation for November 2023. The item is for information. There were no contracts awarded by the CEO under delegation between the values of $250,000 and $500,000 for the month of November. Item 15 is notices of motion, and there are none. Item 16 is councillors' reports. Would any councillor like to make a report on their activities over the last month to the public meeting? No. Item 16 is the Mayor's Diary for November 2023, and the item is for information. Item 17 is the Decisions Register, again for information. Item 18 is general business. Do we have any, councillors, do we have any general business for the meeting? Councillor Gaffney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Beechworth Wodonga Road has now been closed with one lane for the past 8 months. And Regional Roads Victoria haven't fixed the culvert because they say that they're heritage listed. The inconvenience to the public, to people coming to visit Beechworth and also leaving Beechworth, the retailers are concerned that it's turning people off coming from the north to visit Beechworth. I was just wondering, I believe that the CEO and the Mayor may be meeting with the Minister. I was wondering if they could make that a priority for the repair of those culverts.
I think that absolutely that can be one of the items that we raise with the Minister. So thank you, councillor, for raising it in the public meeting. Do any other councillors have any general business for the meeting? Councillor Horn.
I'd like the CEO to comment on steps being taken to address the ongoing situation in regard to the revocation of funding promised in the 2016 election to look into removing trucks from Main Street, Rutherglen. Specifically, $4 million was allocated to Vic Roads, as they were at the time, to deliver the Rutherglen Origin and Destination Study, which was supposed to inform a plan designed to take the pressure off Main Street, Rutherglen, by rerouting heavy vehicles out of the town, something the community has been asking for over 50 years. Given this context and the recent terrible accident in Dalesford, locals are asking why we have to wait for a tragedy to occur, and would appreciate some feedback on what can be done in the ongoing situation, please.
Thank you, Councillor Horn. CEO.
Through you, Mayor Price. The community will be aware that the project was put on hold, not by ourselves, but by Regional Roads Victoria, when the federal government announced it was reviewing a range of funding grants. And this project being one of them that was caught up in that review, the so-called 90-day review. The federal government has now announced that it is withdrawing its funding, which was 2 million out of 4 for that project. So that's already public information. So we're currently in the process now of seeking advice from the state government whether they are still willing to put forward their share of the grant, and we will be seeking that. We have already sought that information from the government, and we'll be awaiting a response to that. We're also seeking a meeting with the minister, and the minister has responded positively to us meeting with her to discuss this further and do all we can. We'll be doing all we can to secure at least the state government's share of that funding to remain intact. So we have no confirmation that it will or not, but we'll certainly be seeking that it does remain intact. But I can't answer what the final answer is to that just yet.
And the Rutherglen Original and Destination Report?
So yeah, offline, Councillor, you've asked me to follow up on that. I have put in a request to the acting regional director for a copy of the origin destination report. So I'm waiting for that to be forwarded to me. I believe it's going to be forthcoming.
And is there any other items for general business for the meeting tonight? No, then the last item for tonight is in confidential. Before we go into confidential, as it's our last meeting for the year, I think we'd just all like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a happy and safe holiday period. We will go into confidential now to consider this item. We will then come back out of the item to close the meeting. And just for the benefit of the public before we do that, the first meeting for 2024 will be Tuesday, the 27th of February. So now I will ask for a recommendation that the council meeting be closed to the public in accordance with section 66 of the Local Government Act. Moved Councillor Gaffney, seconded Councillor Tyson. Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We'll now move into confidential. We've now moved out of confidential session. I declare the meeting closed at 7:15 PM and note that the next scheduled council meeting is Tuesday, 27th of February, 2024 at 6:30 PM. Thank you.